In this video, we're going to investigate some of the things that we can do with strings, some of the basic operations that we have, and just kind of identifying some of the methods we can use and the functions that we can use for different strings. So I'm in my script editor already. You can see I have a spreadsheet open. I have my script editor open. Let's go ahead and start with length. So I can create I can use a variable to represent string's length. So if I have a string, like we'll just say var s, this is my string, then I've got this string, and if we could just simply log it, and we could save this project. We'll go ahead and save this project as strings project, and if we run our code and we look at our log, we'll just hit command enter or control enter to look at the log. You see we have this as my string. We could now create a variable called length, and we could say my string. Well, now we have a problem, because if I want to say my strings, I need to use that apostrophe, but that's not going to work because, well, now you can see we've got an issue. S.length. Now we could change these to double quotes, and that would be okay. We could do that, and that would be fine. Now you can see that this is actually going to work, and if I run my code, it's going to run. It's not going to give me a problem. If I change these back to single quotes, it's going to give me an issue. If I save this and I run it, it's going to, oh no, this is not okay. We've got some error, and it's not even an error that sounds right. Missing a semicolon. That's not good. So we're going to use our escaping that we talked about in our presentation. We're going to use the backslash. The backslash character on your keyboard is probably right above your enter key. Now you have a forward slash that usually is your question mark key. It's usually question mark, and if you hold down shift and hit the question mark key, you'll get a forward slash. We want to use the backslash. The backslash is the one that starts at the top left and goes to the bottom right. So now if we save this and we run this, it's going to work fine. But we can actually now we can say logger.log, and we can get length, and we can see what that looks like. Let's go ahead and run this. We hit command enter or control enter to look at our log, and you can see now my string's length is 18. So that shows us that we have a string that has 18 characters. Now if we want to count them out, we can see how this works. We have 0, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, and then 10, 11, 12, 13, 14, 15, 16, 17. So we go all the way up to 17. This last index would be 17 right here. But we have 18 characters, and that's because we have to count 0. So 0 counts as 1. So the characters in our string would be numbered from 0 all the way up to 17, and that would give us a total of 18 characters. So this length will pretty easily tell us how many things are in it. If we want to use some other escaping options, we can do that as well. We could use double quotes the same way. If we said var quote, we could put in a string that says something like, he said this is the way. Now this isn't going to work. You can see we've got these double quotes here. If we run this, it's going to give me that same weird error. We're missing a semicolon before the statement. So we need to escape those with our backslash character. And now if we run this, and we'll go ahead and log that again, just copy and paste that, and we'll change that variable to quote. Now we run, and if we look at our log, we can see he said this is, and this looks exactly as we would expect it to look. Those backslashes are gone. They're not included in the string itself. They're just used to identify that this is something that shouldn't be included. We can also use tabs and new lines this way. We'll say this is separated by tab. And we can log this one as well. And we run this, and we look at our log, and we see this is separated. And then you've got this tab character right there. Notice how when I highlight that, it's a big wide space. So we can use tabs just to separate some text here in our logs. So we can add that tab. We can also add an end line. So we can use var end line. This is a string with an, go ahead and put this, with an end line or to in it. And it actually has more than 2. So now when we log this, log endline, we run, and we take a look at this in our log, and you can see we're breaking that string. Those \n characters don't show up in our string at all. They're actually just invisible, but they are these end line characters. They break the string. They break across multiple lines. So we might actually do this a little bit better by separating this a little bit, but so we can see, because now if we run this again, save and run this, and look at this, it's not going to look any different. There's a space after each one of these lines, but it doesn't really look any differently. Now we can't do this. We can't separate these end line characters on both sides, because that will look different, because we will have those spaces in front. And now you can see there's like this space right in front that kind of shifts the alignment a little bit on this left side. Looks a little bit odd, so we typically don't want to do that. We'll hit Control-Z to change that out, and that should be okay the way it is. We can also make a very long string, so we could use var long string is equal to, this is a longer string that may span multiple lines, and it will get too long to really use in a single line if we keep, and we like to space things, so we'll just go ahead and space this all the way over here, going in this way. So notice this backslash just basically says continue on the next line. And if we run this, it's going to be okay. If we log this string, you'll notice we don't get an end line. We'll go ahead and save this, run it. Let's save it, run it, view our log, and well, we do get this long space because we like to make sure our code is formatted properly. In this case, we can't do that. We have to actually move this code all the way to the other side, which now looks a little bit odd, looks a little bit weird. And if we run this and hit enter, so we typically don't use this mechanism because it's hard to really format our code in a way that makes sense. We like to keep our code well formatted because it allows us to look at where things are. Right now we're only really looking at lines of code within our functions, but in a few modules we're going to get into if statements that are going to separate our code a little bit more. We're going to get into loops, which are going to separate our code a little bit more, and we'll get into objects, which are going to separate our code a little more. So we want to make sure that we keep things formatted properly, but we can do this actually pretty easily. We don't really need this thing here. We don't really need that. We can actually just break our string naturally, and we can use long string plus equal, and we can just keep doing that, long string plus equal, and that way we don't get that weird formatting, and this kind of all still looks like normal code. So we can always just add this, or we could even do plus, and then now because we ignore all of our white space, we can just have all of this white space here, and we can have all of this white space here, and we can just concatenate all of these strings together, and our app script is going to be happy with that. It's going to run it properly. It's going to look okay when we output it. Everything's going to be okay there. So that's that works pretty effectively. Now that will get us through some basic escaping and length and everything. But let's create another function here, and we'll use this to look at parts of our string. So function, other function. Now we can find things in our string. So var s, this is my string. We could say, let's see where we can find my. So var index is equal to s.indexOf my, and we will use logger.log index. Well, let's log s and then let's log index. Notice that I can call this variable s because it's in a separate function. This function, the variables in this function and the variables in this function don't actually have anything to do with each other. So I can name things the same across different functions. Now let's go ahead and switch over to other function. I hit run, and we look at our log, and we're going to see this is my string, and my is at 8.0. And if we count that out, 0, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. It's right there. So we found it. So that makes it pretty easy to find things within a string. We could also find, the last index of var last index, and we could use s.last index of, and there are a lot of i's in that string. So let's just find the string I, the string I here. Logger.log last index is, and if we run this, we should see last index is 14. So it's all the way out here at 14. Now, index of, if we just change this to, if we just used index of here, if we change this to just I, we're going to see that we get 2. So the first index of I, 0, 1, 2, and then the last index is all the way out here at character 14. We could get a substring. If we wanted to use a substring, we could find out where my is. So we could find out maybe my plus the 5 or 6 characters after that. So we could say var my is equal to s.index of, or s.substring. Now, if we knew where my was, and we know where it is because we already checked that out, we could use 8 and 10, and then we could log the substring. And if we run this and we look at our log, you can see that my substring is my. And what that basically is saying is take the substring from character 8 all the way up to, but not including character 10. So if we change this to 11, it's actually not going to look any different because it's just going to get that extra space character. See, this substring is my. But if we do 12 and we run this, let's go ahead and run, and then we hit enter. There we go. We can see this substring is my s. So there we caught the characters 8, 9, 10, and 11. So we got my my space s is basically the substring that we're looking at here. So this this substring gives us all of the characters up to, but not including that last character that we're specifying here. And if that kind of works the same way, we might use length, so we could use a substring from 0 up to length, and that way our substring function or substring method would still work properly. So we could actually use this to extract my, we could say var extract my is equal to s.substring s.index of my.length plus s.index of my. Let's create a new string here. We'll create a string called m. Let's go ahead and fix this. Actually, we'll just make this one just straight my. And we'll go ahead and take this call out, and we will use logger.log my is extract my. And if we run this, and we haven't made any mistakes, we should see, there we go, we got my. So basically what we're doing is we're saying, give me the substring from where my starts up until where my starts plus the length of my, which will be where my ends. So this chaining these different these different method calls together, it actually allows us to do some interesting and complicated things. So we can do some other basic things. We could say, to uppercase, logger.log s.to uppercase. We can also do logger.log s.to lowercase. And if we run our code and view our log, you can see the uppercase and then the lowercase values of these strings. Now the last thing we want to look at for strings is we want to look where we can find characters. So we could say logger.log s.charAt. If we say pick 3, this should give us an S character, 0, 1, 2, 3. So let's go ahead and run this, and we view it, and we see that S right there. Now if we want to see the character code for S, logger.log s char code at 3, It's going to give us some number. I think it'll give us some number around, I don't know, 70 something. I can't remember exactly what S's character code is. Oh no, 115. If we were to use A, if we change this to capital A, I think that one is maybe 65. Let's go ahead and run it. We'll see. There we go. So I know one or two things. So that char code at will give us the actual numeric value for that character, because all of the characters are really just numeric values. When they're in the computer, the computer shows them to us as letters. So this should give you a good demonstration of some of the things that you can do with strings. I hope you learned something. I hope that you'll be able to use this in your functions going forward. Thanks for watching.